Today's Wednesday, November 14th, regular meeting of the Public Works Committee. I'm joined here by my colleagues, Mr. Krikorian, Council Member Garcetti, and if anyone would like to address this committee, please be sure to fill out a public comment card on an agenda item or non-agenda item. We will take public comment now. Do you have any, Michael, any public comment cards?
So far, we have no public comment cards.
Okay. So with that, if there are no objections, I'd like to take items 1, 3, and 4 together. These are some naming of the streets on consent. Any objection? No objection? So if we can take those items 1, 3, and 4 together on consent. So with that, item number 2, if you can please read that.
Item number 2 is a motion from Council Members Buscaino and Garcetti relative to naming Cabrillo Avenue between 12th Street and 13th Street in San Pedro as Boys and Girls Club Way.
Thank you, Michael. The reason why I'm held that on the desk, I just need to make an amendment to clarify the intent of this motion. And if I can, amend the 5th paragraph to say, it is appropriate that the city give Cabrillo Avenue between 12th Street and 13th Street the honorary title of Boys and Girls Club Way. And also amend the 6th paragraph to say that Cabrillo Avenue between 12th and 13th Streets in San Pedro be given the honorary title of Boys and Girls Club Way, and that the Department of Transportation be directed to erect permanent ceremonial signs to this effect at this location. Mr. Yu, is Mr. Yu here? Anyone here from BOE?
I'm here from LADOT. Just want to make sure that...
If you can come up, please. Thank you. So from LADOT, can you just identify yourself, please, sir?
Good afternoon. My name is Merdad Mushtar. I'm the district engineer with the Central District.
Thank you.
Replacing my colleague with Southern District, who this location belongs to, Crystal Keeley. She couldn't make it this afternoon. I just want to make sure, are we renaming the street or we're just erecting ceremonial signs?
Just ceremonial signs.
So we're not renaming the street?
Right. Just ceremonial. That's what kind of error at staff made, so we just needed to clarify it's strictly ceremonial signs.
Then I don't think there will be any issue.
Okay.
They will be very happy to fabricate the sign and install it as soon as we have all the information available.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Questions, colleagues, on this? All right, so with that, we'll move forward on this item. Okay, moving on to item number 5.
Item number 5 is a report from the Department of Transportation relative to establishing a bike sharing program in the city of Los Angeles and the development of a permitting process for the installation of bike share kiosks in the public right-of-way. This matter was approved by the Transportation Committee on October 24th, 2012.
This is real exciting. I'm really happy to move forward on this. We have representatives here to please come forward for a report. Thank you.
Michelle Mallory, Senior Bicycle Coordinator with the Department of Transportation.
Claire Bowen, City Planning.
Thank you.
As you all may know, the mayor 2 cyclovias ago actually announced the coming of bike share to the city of Los Angeles. The organization Bike Nation has made an offer to the city of a bike share program valued at $16 million to be installed in public and private properties throughout the city in 4 areas, primarily, starting with a sharing program in downtown, Venice, Westwood, and Hollywood are the 4 areas that are being looked at for the pilot project. While the city is working on its issues with permitting and figuring out how to do that, Bike Share has also approached several sister cities to talk about expanding the program to their areas. For instance, Bike Share has negotiated an agreement with the city of Long Beach and has an executed agreement to provide bike share services to the city of Long Beach for 10 years. So we have been working with the mayor's office and Bike Nation to look at the development of this project and to create a soft launch sometime in December, primarily in the downtown, to begin testing the equipment and essentially integrating the system downtown. DOT believes it's essential to get some sort of network of bikeways on the ground to support the system before we go ahead and start putting it in, so the public has some confidence and ability to ride on the city streets. We are city planning, and I know you'll talk a little bit about this, is going to talk about how we install on the private properties, but we have been working with the Bureau of Engineering and Bureau of Street Services to talk about how we install on public properties. We've recently come across an old ordinance that no one's been using and nobody was quite aware of, 8504, that allows the Department of Transportation to establish bicycle zones in the city. What essentially gives us the authority to determine areas where bicycle parking would be installed in the public right-of-way. We're recommending some updates to that ordinance as a part of the new citywide bicycle parking ordinance that is going forward that will allow us to do more innovative things like bike share and bike corrals. But essentially, that's how we're moving forward.
Claire Bowen with City Planning. I just wanted to share with you our department's enthusiasm for this bike share program, and wanted to let you know that as we move forward, we want to be able to make sure that we facilitated the introduction of bike share kiosks in as many places as possible. So Michelle was talking about the opportunity to put them in the public right-of-way, but we also know that there are many developments, private developments, that also might be very suitable for including bike share or bike corrals. And so the department has recently created a new zoning administrator's interpretation, number 2012-3101, that will go into effect November 26th. And this will basically allow the department, when requested by developers, to include as a use of a bicycle corral on private property.
I also wanted to note that Derek Freitheim with Bike Nation happens to be in the audience if you had any questions of him today.
Great. I have a few questions. Can we legally move forward on this process for Bike Nation without the benefit of an RFP process for the use of public right-of-way?
Actually, I'm probably the worst person to ask this because DOT doesn't have a...
Would there be any other bike companies eligible to move forward on this, or just
Well,
Bike Nation?
because we are essentially allowing a private entity to come in and do this, any private entity could come in and pull permits.
Okay.
So certainly any other agency, any other group would be allowed to come in and try to establish a program in the city, either side by side or in a different pilot area or something like that. But certainly there's an opportunity given the scenario that we have now. We have no exclusive agreement with Bike Nation.
Go ahead.
Tanner Blackman, Office of Councilmember Jose Huizar. We were one of the movers of the motion. My understanding is with this type of sort of pilot project, it wouldn't necessarily be under the same requirements of an RFP. For example, the parklets motion that was recently adopted by City Council identifies in that, a sort of similar kind of public right-of-way approval process for two specific entities, these sort of community groups that we've been working with in CD14. And I think as a pilot project, I think it would fall under the sort of similar cases that.
Would the city enter an MOU with the Bike Nation?
The city has not done so at this point, no. What we expect would happen as this pilot were to move forward, what we hope to do is, and if you look at the report, it talks a little bit about this, and the council member Huizar's motion talks about this. We're looking to develop a 2-year program to see how this works in the city, and at that point it's anticipated we go to RFP. In a lot of ways, we would have the best of both worlds with this particular scenario. While it's a different model for the city, certainly we've watched agencies like the City of New York, who has a contract with Bixby. Actually, Bixby's software has failed, and they're having problems launching their program right now. The City of Chicago has selected B-Cycle as their vendor, and they're in contractual and legal issues with their RFP. So in some ways, this has been a real benefit for us to test this program.
How were the communities chosen for this, for the pilot program?
Bike Nation provided a proposal to come and do those 4 areas. They've been essentially vetted as areas where we have a lot of bike traffic and or tourist traffic that might work well. Downtown certainly ideal for DOT. We've been working pretty thoroughly to get a number of bikeway facilities on the ground. Venice has a very high number of bicycles now, and we've got a pretty dense network for bikeways. Certainly the UCLA campus, and what I neglected to say is Bike Nation is working with UCLA to establish a program on their campus, so the Westwood Village provides a great nexus, and Hollywood is certainly a destination.
How about the harbor area? Let's not forget, can we include the Port of Los Angeles, the waterfront, as part of the pilot program?
We actually have heard from Port of LA, and they
Yeah.
are working directly with Bike Nation. They have the authority, since, the setup of the way the port works, they have the authority to work directly with Bike Nation and establish a program now. And
I'd like to make that recommendation.
I think they're already
In
doing
fact,
it.
you said Bike Nation's here? Come on up, please, welcome, and thank you for your commitment to the city and literally moving the city along here.
Hi, Derek Hart, I'm
Thanks,
Chief
Derek.
Operating Officer with Bike Nation. We have already met with the port and
Great.
had discussions about a program, did a site plan, and probably about 30 days away from making some sort of decision on
That'd be
that.
great. Thank you so much for your commitment. Colleagues, questions?
Did we consider any option like this in the bicycle master plan? I don't recall whether citing of facilities like this was considered.
Within the Bicycle Master Plan, there is a policy. We have 183 separate different policies and programs within the document. Bike share is one of them.
Okay. And in the course of doing that analysis, did the city make any determination as to the optimal locations for this kind of an infrastructure?
No, the policy document is literally 3 or 4 sentences about policies that should be established throughout the city. We haven't done a lot of, Claire's chomping at the bit on this one. I'll let her-
Not as a part of the bicycle plan, but recently during the development of the new mobility element that we're updating, we did do what we call a heat map for the city to kind of determine independently what areas might be well-suited for bicycle share, and they really do coincide with the areas that Bike Nation has already identified, downtown, Hollywood in particular, as well as portions of the west side and the UC campuses.
Okay. Did we look at, for example, the terminus of the Red Line or anything like that that would tie in with our larger transit system, and so that people who are utilizing transit can also use the bike share program?
Transit is a number one destination for bike share, and it's definitely who we want to meet with. We have had several meetings with MTA Real Estate very specifically about siting at their stations, and we're moving forward with MTA.
Okay.
I would just say that one of the things that we've done in looking at the viability of the city for bicycle share programs is just kind of a word of caution, is what we've seen from other cities around the country, and I'm sure Bike Nation would echo this, is that where cities have tried to do too much large coverage over at the very, very beginning and not have enough kind of density or concentration of bike share facilities, the programs haven't worked as well. So it's really recommended that you start in kind of smaller and concentrate bike kiosks in a very smaller area, and then the idea would be obviously to expand over time. Obviously, there are certainly many, many destinations we'd like to certainly look at in kind of a second or third rollout.
Yeah, the concern that I have, I mean, first of all, because it would be really cool to have some of these things out in the valley, and especially near the Red Line station, where it's really needed. But my larger concern is trying to identify what the array of options the city has before it to meet this need may be, since this is essentially a single source kind of thing, that we're not proceeding with any kind of an RFP or anything. It's a significant investment by the company in infrastructure. But if there are, for example, just hypothetically speaking, if there are a limited number of prime locations within the city, let's say, I don't think there are, but let's say hypothetically, that there were a limited number of prime locations, and we don't go through an RFP process, we don't do anything else other than grant those prime locations to one vendor, then other vendors would very likely be frustrated in their intention of coming to Los Angeles to broaden the scope. So I feel a little handicapped in trying to talk this through, on the spot with us, if we haven't looked at that or tested the market. And I think I'm confident enough that there are enough possible prime locations in Los Angeles that there's lots of room for others to be involved in. I think you've already clarified that this is not an exclusive agreement, so you might be subject to future competition, right, even in those very locations, and that's fine, as long as we all know that that's the case going in, and the company's still willing to make an investment. I think that makes sense, but it always makes me a little uncomfortable when we don't test the marketplace, but I guess the test of the marketplace comes as we launch the pilot program, and if it works, great, and if others are attracted to come in, better still. So now that I've had this whole debate with myself,
Where do you come out?
I agree. I agree. I've convinced myself. So, yeah. So I'm good. But that's part of the committee process, after all. But I would look forward to working both with the department and with the vendor to explore the possibility. The San Fernando Valley seems like an absolutely opportune place to look towards the future for as well. And it's very important to me to have these connections with transit, because then it's a twofer. I mean, we encourage bicycling, we also encourage transit use.
Mr. Garcetti?
Thank you. And you convinced me too, Mr. Gregorian.
Thank you. Well,
I'm all for the valley and for the harbor as being possible expansion points. As you were talking, Mr. Gregorian, I thought about what we went through with our shared car promotion in Hollywood. Right now, there's really only one company that does the zip car. But what we did is we went up to the state legislature, changed some laws so that we could allow reserved parking on the street for any shared car company. Right now, it's Zipcar that's up there. They have signs that the city have done, right under the city signs, that it's reserved for shared cars, and it's Zipcar. But if another competitor comes about, those prime locations in some ways are already primed for others to be there too in Hollywood. So we have that at Hollywood and Vine, Hollywood and Western, Hollywood and Highland, and some other locations. So that certainly is a model that we could look at as well. And I would just reiterate that I think around Hollywood too, the closer we can get it to the red line stops, and already these kind of multimodal centers that we're beginning to have will help its success, and let us know what we can do to promote. I don't know if you guys have availability, like apps, like of how many bikes are available, but we'd love to fold that into some of the other apps that we have right now. Like we do that with car spaces. We'd love to let people know there's transportation options. So this is how many bikes are available. This is how, there's a shared car available, and there's these parking spaces if you want to come, but something that helps people kind of have a way of assessing the transportation options and looking at, okay, there's some bikes there, let's go and let's make it happen. So if we can help you with that, let us know as well.
Mr. Chairman, I have a few more questions for myself, please. Specifically, where in the right-of-way do these things get located?
Did you? They essentially go in a parking space. They could go on a parking space, they could go on a very wide sidewalk, they could go on City Hall property. There are a variety of places in the public right-of-way that we can cite them. And I know you might want to talk about the soft launch.
Can you also add the average cost as well?
The average cost for a user?
For user, yes.
Okay. First of all, to comment on Councilmember Garcetti, we do have applications available and mobile web, because not everybody has a smartphone.
Sure.
And those are available, so we'd love to work with whomever on your side to get those integrated. In terms of public right-of-way, part of the reason why, and this is to your point about connecting to transit, Metro doesn't own certain properties along the red line specific to downtown where they actually have property. It's all subterranean, and so part of the challenge we have in terms of connectivity to transit is siting specific to a location that's along, say, 7th and Fig, where we don't have public right-of-way, or we need the public right-of-way in order to provide that type of connectivity. So there are certain properties that we do have to look at, both on public and the private side, and in some cases along metro lines, they have a developer agreement. We have to work with another third party to make sure we have the proper permits and/or use types to get into that particular type of property. But in roughly, we're talking about a 30. Our system is 15 docks. The standard station is 15 docks, which is about 30 feet long. And so we need, some length. It's about 5 feet wide. And we look for roughly 8 feet total, so we have enough access and egress into that facility. So a good location on public right-of-way would be to potentially look at sidewalk. If we don't have enough access or we don't want to impede pedestrian flow, then we have to look at somewhere on the street or off-street parking facility or something to that effect. We want visibility because it's important for folks to know where those locations are. So a parking space, one or two, might be the best option in a certain location. And there is no magic wand and say here's the standard, because every single site is different. We have to do site plans for every single location. The soft launch that Michelle was talking about is December, January timeframe. We plan to do roughly 10 to 15 locations, utilize city staff, county, state, other private sector folks to do a soft launch to test out the system, connecting the Civic Center, county building, courthouse, Caltrans DOT building with Union Station, and run that pilot for, say, 90 days to look at things like where are we going to place systems. For example, Caltrans building alone, 1,800 staff, 400 staff members utilize Metrolink or come through the Union Station. That's a tremendous amount of employee population just in one building. So we have to look at things like where will our peak travel behavior go, and then we have to load balance bikes based on those particular types of demands. Because our strategy is to make sure that there's a bike always available at a station when somebody wants to rent a bike, and there's an open dock when somebody needs to return it. So we have to do a tremendous amount of trend analysis in our software to learn some of those trends, and we won't know those until we get something in the ground.
Okay, so as that develops, what will be the city process for review of those site plans and selections?
We submit a site plan based on a location, and it's either private property. If it's private property, we show them an agreement that we have with that property owner, and then they look at specifically where that site is, where the station is located. If it's public property, we work directly with DOT on that.
85.04 would give DOT the authority to determine where this would be sited and give us a sign-off on a plan.
As to each site?
Right.
Okay.
And because we're dealing with public right-of-way, are we not including the city attorney in the process? If so, I'd like to recommend that
We've been working, we've been, from our end, we've been working primarily with Michael Nagel, who's assigned to TOT.
Mr. Chair and Paul Smith, there's another concern. The city already has an exclusive contract with CBS Deco for advertising purposes within the city's right-of-way.
Right.
I'm not sure how this new service is going to be financed, but if advertising is part of it, we already have a vendor that has the exclusive right to do that advertising in the right-of-way. So that's a concern we have, and it should be a part of their consideration of how they're going to roll this service out.
In the early discussions that the mayor's office and DOT had with Bike Nation, they've been made aware of the agreement with CBS Deco. They're aware of the limitations and the rights that CBS Deco has at this point.
Yeah, we've had communication with CBS Deco. In addition to that, our funding comes from a $270 million green fund. It's part of a $4 billion public trust fund that's available. This is a set-aside specific for green sustainable funding. And so we have a total of $10 million that's coming to us over the next 13 months, and then access to the full $270 million.
And a good insurance plan, I take it.
Absolutely.
Okay. And again, I don't know if you answered the question. Forgive me if you did. The user fees, what's the average cost?
Annual membership is $75. It's like a gym membership. It's annual. If you ride, any ride within 30 minutes is always free, whether you're a member or whether you're a casual user. 24-hour membership gives you access to the system for 24 hours. That's $6. And then we have 3-day, 7-day, and then also 30-day memberships.
Great. I guess also another concern would be, like you said, insurance indemnification.
Sure.
Some type of agreement, MOU, or some type of document which would spell out roles and responsibilities.
I think the Councilmember Wiesener's motion actually calls out indemnification of the city.
Fantastic. Okay, great. Well, thank you. Any other questions, guys? No? I'm really excited about moving this forward. I want to thank Mr. Weezer and Mr. Garcetti for moving this forward and their leadership and finding another way to green the city and literally moving the city. I don't see any cars on this item, so without objection, we'll move this item forward.
And therefore concur with the approval that the Transportation Committee
Right,
gave
approve the
prior.
DOT report as amended. I just would like to include the city attorney in the process. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, item number 6.
Item number 6 is a motion from council members Buscaino, Rosendahl, Garcetti, and Zine relative to planning a citywide parade to honor veterans who have served in Iraq and the Afghanistan wars.
So on this item, I'm going to move to a note and file this. We, instead of the parade to honor our veterans that we initially put forth, we had an amazing citywide Veterans Appreciation Festival this last Saturday in front of the USS Iowa. And as I said on council floor, I wanted to thank the Port of Los Angeles, the mayor's office, my staff, number of city entities and resources from all levels of government, and also the sponsors primarily to help underwrite this festival. And Mr. Garcetti was there, if you want to say a few words on it.
It was awesome, and thank you, Mr. Buscaino, for putting it together with the mayor's office. It was about 3,000 people in front of the great battleship, Big Stick, right there, and it was, I think a lot of the folks that were there really were, as much as the appreciation was good, the services that were there to help our veterans was fabulous. So maybe the beginning of a great tradition here in Los Angeles.
Yes, and I want to thank the mayor. He called Mr. Garcetti and I out to ensure that this is an annual event for many years to come, and I understand that the committee had a debrief meeting this morning, and one suggestion I heard was to relocate or have this festival in other parts of the city, and someone in the committee said only if you can relocate the USS Iowa over around the city, so I think that was shot down quickly. But nonetheless,
For the sake of the record, Mr. Chairman, the LA River is navigable.
It takes you out Long Beach.
possibly. So with that, again, I want to thank everyone. So we'll note and file item number 6, Michael. Item number 7, please.
Item number 7 is a motion from council members West and Buscaino relative to utilizing the Public Works Trust Fund to pay for supplemental street tree pruning and maintenance, as well as the repair of the city's median island irrigation systems. This matter was also referred to the Budget and Finance Committee.
Hey, as we know, this is one of our core city services that we need to figure out how to continue to deliver to our residents. So we have members from the Board of Public Works here, City Attorney as well.
Ron Lorenzo, Bureau of Street Services.
Thank you.
Vicky Santiago, Board of Public Works, Office of Accounting.
Arlene Taylor, Board of Public Works, Executive Officer.
So the purpose and the proper use of the Public Works Trust Fund is something that has been brought up before. Now, during budget deliberations in 07-08, the Chair of Budget requested the Board of Public Works report back with a complete accounting of the fund. How the fund is managed, the purpose of the fund, the allowable expenditures of monies in the fund, how funds are handled, the status of outstanding loans, and reporting requirements. This report is contained in Council File 07-0600-S56. And reading through the report, I'm concerned about the feasibility of using the dollars in this fund for this purpose, but I do think we need to come up with some options to address this problem, even if the Public Works Trust Fund is not one of them. Can you just share your thoughts as well on this item?
That is true, sir. The Public Works Trust Fund is a depository account. This is where we put all the money we receive from our customers who we require to deposit some kind of amount in order to ensure that they are going to comply with the requirements of the city. For example, developers, contractors, in the Bureau of Engineering, before they issue a permit to them, they are required to deposit a certain amount of money so that they will be ensuring compliance with all the requirements of the Bureau of Engineering. And if after the project is finished and they complied with all the requirements, then we are obliged to return the deposits to them. That's why we are very careful in using the money for some other purpose. Currently, we are using the money to loan it out to projects like for those grant funded because the grantors will only reimburse us for the amount of money that we incur after the project has been expended, has been done. And so there should be upfront funding for it. So we loan out money from the Public Works Trust Fund, but we get it back once we get the money from the grantor.
Got it. Questions, colleagues? Good. Mr. Krikorian, good?
So what's is your recommendation?
I'm gonna-
to hold this?
Yeah, I'm going to amend this motion to broaden the scope, asking that all parties listed in the report with recommendations, including utilizing the Public Works Trust Fund to pay for supplemental tree trimming and maintenance, as well as repair of the city's medium island systems. I'd also like to include a recommendation that the CAO and the city attorney report on how much money the city has paid out over the last 5 years in liability claims resulting in the fallen tree limbs. I know you've seen this in the news several times, that these trees fallen over a house or a tree hitting a vehicle.
Incidentally, sir, there's an account in the Public Works Trust Fund for the Mayor's $1 Million Tree Initiative, which is about tree planting, and the source of money is coming from LADWP because of their Green LA program and the South Coast Air Quality Management District. I'm not sure if it's some form of a grant to the city. And the program is being managed by the Board of Public Works and is contracted to LA Conservation Corps. Right now, there's about 1.9 million in the account, out of which 1.3 is appropriated already for LA Conservation Corps. And they are rendering that type of service to the city. I'm not sure if this motion will be entitled to that initiative.
Yes, Mr. Krikorian.
So, if I understand correctly, developer submits a deposit into the fund, and upon complete compliance with all of engineering's requests, then the remainder of that deposit is refunded. At what point in time does, if at all, does the money that's deposited escheat? Is there, I mean, do we hold it in trust for them forever? What if there's non-compliance? Then how long are we obligated to continue to hold that fund, those funds in trust until we escheat it? Or there's just some other process?
Actually, as far as I know, per controller's policy, the city has no limited period of time for achievement of money. We have money out there that the public can claim anytime, even if it's way back 1970s and so on.
See, that's a terrible position to put
right.
the fund in.
We don't have
It's
a policy
terrible
yet,
position
yeah.
to put the city in, and that's something that needs attention and needs to be fixed. In my view, it should be the policy of the city that within a certain amount of time, the developer complies with all requests, or they do not. And at the end of that time period, that money, the city has to either refund the city the money, or it becomes ours, one or the other. But to have those sorts of unaccountable obligations pending for decades makes this fund essentially unusable for any real purpose, because we have no idea what claims there may be against it.
It's true, sir, yeah.
So is that something that is being considered by somebody already, or is that something that we need to provide guidance and instruction on? Because if so, I think I'll introduce that
Yeah, I'd like to make
motion.
yeah.
Maybe it
Make
should
a
be should probably be
Right.
separate from what you have here, because this is one thing. but
Right.
Since the issue came up, we'll introduce that.
If you want to make a policy motion on the floor,
Yeah,
and
we'll do
then
that.
we can,
If you Rule 64 it, just say it came up after the posting.
Yeah,
Oh.
Not very often used, but.
so,
especially by me.
that was a valid concern, Mr. Krikorian. I
Okay,
appreciate that.
we'll discuss that with
Yes.
you further, Mr. Chairman, but I support your recommendation.
Very good. We have one comment card here, Mr. Lord from CD10, if you can come forward, please. Albert Lord.
Cleared them all out.
Mr. Buscaino, Mr. Krikorian, Mr. Garcia. My name is Albert Lord. I'm a field deputy for the City Council President, Herb Wesson, and I appreciate the opportunity to come before you and talk. I want to thank you for allowing me to express what I see every day as a field deputy for the Council President. Our primary duties as field deputies is to attend community and block club meetings. And aside from the issue of public safety from our police department, our fire department, the number one concern on the streets are trees, trees, trees. The community is outspoken. The community is outspoken to the point of outrage in the fact that the overgrown trees have impacted their conditions and quality of life. They've impacted the travel on sidewalks, they've impacted the vehicle travel through the streets, and they've even gotten to the point to now they're encroaching on private property where they're damaging roof lines, windows, and the well-being of these people as they live in their homes. These trees are overgrown and they need to be taken care of. And the community is just concerned because their tax dollars don't seem to be working in providing a quality of life that they're interested in having. The impact of city services this not only impacts city services, including street sweepers, which aren't able to sweep streets. There are also sanitation trucks that can't pick up the garbage. And also at night, these trees are blocking our street lamps, creating a darkened street in what would otherwise be safe neighborhoods. My request is to ask that you approve this motion and move it forward. It's just a portion of the $10 million, which is to be split across all city districts. And I wish that you would take that into consideration and help the people in the city of Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lord, and thank you for being there for the residents of Council District 10. Council President's well represented with you there. I want to move this item as amended without objection. Okay. So I think that brings us to the conclusion of the, any public comment cards?
No public comment cards.
Okay, with that, this Public Works Committee is now adjourned. Thank you.